buckle up for safety as I give you a day in the life of facilities maintenance.
So if you're wondering what I'm doing up on the roof with a snow shovel, as you saw, that leak is still active. Now I've repaired that drain behind me, and I've repaired that drain over there. So I know it's not coming from either one of those. So I could do a couple of different things at this point. Where the water is dripping through is right about there. So I could start moving the gravel back in concentric circles, getting larger and larger until I see something. Or I could move out in east-west directions following that steel beam, because water is traveling. I just don't know where it's accessing it because it's only showing up at the point of the leak. So it's hidden, right? I guess I'll just start shoveling and see if I find anything. At the very least, I got to move this gravel anyway. So that is what I shall start doing. So I'm trying to apply a little common sense or logic to this, as opposed to just digging everywhere, and start close to home and work my way out. So I think where all this standing water is here is where I will focus my attention now. And if I don't find anything, then continue on in the directions that I was going. Problem is, it's hard to find stuff with standing water. That's about all my lower back can handle at this point. I just hope that the hole in this membrane is contained somewhere within the gravel that I've got piled up around the edge, because it's one thing to move the rock when it's a thin layer. It's another thing to start shoveling piles of gravel. I think at that point we find students who need to do some work and put them to it. I think I'll go get a push broom and maybe my squeegee and start trying to clean this rubber decking so I can get a better look at it. What I am seeing in this area right now are a lot of seams. Right, this seam that runs all the way up to here, and then what looks like possibly a, I don't know, was there a pat? Like there's a seam here, there's a seam here, there's a seam here, there's a seam here. I'm almost wondering if this area here was previously patched. Regardless, right here, this seam lifts a little bit. Now, does it lift enough to allow Water penetration, I do not know. Not seeing anything squeeze out of there. Tough to say. What I do know is that it's going to take a while to get the water off the roof. It stopped raining now, so that'll help. If I can steer most of the water down the drain and then let things dry off and then get a better look at it. Wash the mud off the seams, perhaps that'll let me see them better. Or the issue might not be in this area at all. It still might be out there somewhere. Or under that pile of rocks. I do not know. That's the fun with roof leaks. A couple of geese just dropped in to say hi. I know it looks like I'm standing in a lake, you guys, but I'm not.
Well, because I've still got an active leak, I've decided to get off the roof and come back downstairs and take another look up in the ceiling to see if there's any way that I can tell which direction the water is coming from. Because without that information, I can't make a repair. So I know water is traveling along this beam. I just don't know whether it's coming from the west or from the east. So I'm checking out both ends of the beam to see if I can see anything. And so far, nothing. It's dry up here on this side of the beam. On the other side, over here, that's a different story. It's dry right up here. That's dry. See the dust up there? Years and years of dust. So this beam is what separates the roof decking, where it goes on this side it's running north-south, and over here it's running east-west. Where is it coming through? At this point, I have not yet been able to determine whether the water is traveling from the south and heading north to the point where it's penetrating the interior, or if it's coming in from the east and traveling west to the leak location. We'll see. Really, there's nothing down here to indicate a direction, so it's really just hit and miss. Unfortunately. I've taken some measurements, and right here where this rock is where we are dripping below. So in order to explore the membrane along the roof deck where that channel is running from the south towards the north where the leak is, I'm going to start digging. Well, I've gone out about 60 feet and I still do not see anything. I don't know. All I can do is keep looking. Morning, Monday morning today. And
The reason I'm actually looking a little bit pleased, no, I haven't discovered where the roof leak is, but what I'm smiling about is the fact that the weather is finally cooperating in such a way that I'm going to be able to use my thermal imaging camera to try and find this leak. I want to use science to find the leak. I have a thermal imaging camera from my many years as a licensed home inspector prior to ever coming into this field of work. So every once in a while, it's nice when I can break out instruments that people wouldn't normally have in their toolbox and save myself a lot of time and money. So why now? Why will thermal imaging give me a better chance at finding the leak now? Or multiple leaks, there could be a few of them. I will try and explain how thermal imaging works and how it applies to a roof in as few words as possible in layman's terms that even I can understand. We've turned a corner weather-wise, We've just turned a corner. It's actually starting to feel like spring is here and summer is not far away. And it has to do less about temperature and more about solar radiation and the UV index. So now, as we're approaching mid-May, the radiation and solar index, it's getting higher. And so what that means is the roof surface itself will absorb more radiation, more solar energy, which results in it'll become warmer. It gets cool at night still. The roof surface is going to absorb the radiation. It will cool down enough at night, and the reason that this matters is because what I am doing is looking for warm spots at night. I'm trying to explain this in such a way so that I can do it in 2 minutes and not stand here talking, because I can understand it in my head, but I'm trying to lay it out for you in such a way that it's concise and brief. They're high enough that the roof surface is going to warm up and it's going to hold that heat. And then the sun goes down. And then everything starts to cool down. And what will cool down last are the wet patches, because they have a higher thermal mass. They're more dense than the dry patches. So if you understand the way a roof is constructed, you've got, in our roof here, we have a metal decking, we have some insulation, we have the rubber membrane, and then we have all the ballast, the rocks on top of here. And that insulation, the wet patches of insulation, have a higher mass than the dry patches of insulation, and so they will hold heat. The problem is I gotta come up here at night, because the time where the greatest differential between the dry patches and the wet patches are basically between midnight and 4 or 5 in the morning. So I need to come back after the roof surface has cooled down while those denser patches are still holding on to heat. Let me give you an example of how that works as it applies to the field back there. I like using wrenches. I use them all the time at work. So if I took a dozen or so wrenches and painted them all a nice vibrant green, the exact same color as the grass, and I scattered them out across the field here, with all the wrenches scattered across the field, I could stand up here with my naked eye and I'd probably have a very difficult time seeing them. But if I come back here at 2 o'clock in the morning with my thermal imaging camera, I could find every single one of those wrenches for you in about 5 seconds. The reason for that is because the wrenches, being made of metal, are much higher density than the grass, and while everything warms up during the day, it cools down at night. But the grass and the wrenches won't cool down at the same speed. The wrenches are going to hold on to their heat. And so I could walk up here and, like I say, in 5 seconds, I'd be able to see where every single one of those wrenches was sitting, because it would be a wrench-shaped hotspot. So the same thing with the roof. I could come back here at 2 in the morning.
And my hope would be that
I would find warm spots under the roof surface that are retaining heat, and that would tell me where the dampness is, where the moisture is being held. Now, having cleared this, like I said, you know, I've repaired that drain there. I've repaired that drain there. And so I know that the water is not coming in through the drains. But there's a good chance that water is migrating down this channel somehow anyway and making its way to where the leak is presenting below, which is right here. And clearing the rocks back the way I have, well, I've pretty much confirmed that it's not leaking here. It's not leaking here. It's not leaking up that pathway. While I know that when I scan this, that this is all going to show up as a warm spot, because I guarantee you it's damp under here, right? It has to be, because that's where the water is presenting below. What I don't know is which direction it's coming from. So my scan, hopefully, will show if the water is coming from this direction and making its way over here. Or if it is coming from this direction, but the breach is somewhere in an area that I have not yet uncovered. I will bring you along with me when I do that. I will share my findings with you, and hopefully that will answer the questions that we need answered so that we can go ahead and start making the repairs to shut down this leak that we've got going on below.